The afternoon sun slanted through the canopy of palms that bordered the family compound, casting long, golden shafts across the freshly spread white petals on Obina's coffin. The once vibrant courtyard that had echoed with laughter throughout Obina's birthday celebrations now stood silent, but for the soft murmur of prayers. Mama Agatha Obi, draped in gauzy black lace, knelt beside her son's coffin, her body racked with sobs so deep they seemed to shake the earth. "Papa Obina, my son," she whispered, her head bowed until her chin brushed the satin ribbon. Every soft syllable was a dagger twisting in her chest. Around her, dozens of mourners, friends, distant relatives, former colleagues, stood in respectful restraint. Yet at the edge of the group, Chioma Obi's cold gaze never wavered. Clad in an immaculate ivory iro and buba, Chioma's posture was regal, but there was no grief in her expression. Instead, her dark eyes glinted with something unholy, contempt. Mama Agatha's tears fell onto Obina's hand, still warm as if he might squeeze hers back. She dreamed of him whispering reassurance, of his gentle voice telling her everything would be all right. Yet his voice was forever stilled. A soft breeze stirred the petals, sending them dancing like wounded birds across the courtyard. A hush fell as the pastor raised his arms. "We commend his gentle spirit to the Lord," he intoned. Mama Agatha closed her eyes, seeking solace in the final prayers, but the words blurred into grief. When the amen came, Chioma stepped forward, her heels clicking on the tiled floor like a death knell. She leaned close to Mama Agatha's ear and whispered, silk-soft but venom-laced, "You have a week to get out of this house." The words sliced through the hush, sharp as broken glass. Mama Agatha froze, her spine arching with shock. The pastor's benediction echoed around her, but she heard only Chioma's cruel whisper. Before Mama Agatha could reply, Chioma withdrew, head held high. A chorus of gasps rippled among the guests. Someone murmured, "Did she just say that?" Another shook his head in disbelief. But Chioma's expression never faltered. Mama Agatha rose unsteadily to her feet, searching Chioma's face as if to ask, "Why?" But Chioma turned, began to walk away toward the house's grand entrance. With one last glance over her shoulder, she spoke again, but this time, her words were carried on the wind for all to hear. "That house is mine now." A tremor passed through Mama Agatha. Her world shattered into a kaleidoscope of dread and disbelief. Beneath her feet, the earth seemed to tilt. Her home, her sanctuary, was slipping away. And so, as the mourners filed past to offer condolences, Mama Agatha's tears were laced with fury and disbelief. The sacred rite of farewell had become the prelude to her own eviction. Chioma's parting words rang like an accusation. "You're not welcome here anymore." Dawn broke the next day with a harsh clarity. Mama Agatha slept fitfully in Obina's old room, the one she'd occupied when she came to live with him after her husband's passing. Now, the sheets lay undisturbed save for the imprint of her frail body. She rose at first light, determined to face her daughter-in-law with dignity. With trembling hands, she tied the sash of her wrapper and walked down the hallway toward Obina's study, her refuge when she wanted to remember him through his books and letters. But as her hand reached for the brass doorknob, she recoiled. The door was locked. A new deadbolt, gleaming and cold, sealed the entrance. Mama Agatha's heart fluttered painfully. She knocked softly, then sharply. "Chioma," she called, voice fragile. "Please let me in." Silence. She tried again. "Chioma, I just want to say thank you for the funeral arrangements." Footsteps approached from within. The lock clicked, but the door did not open. A sliver of silver light traced the crack under the door. A voice, smooth and clipped. "That's not your place anymore, Mama." Mama Agatha's lips trembled. "My place? This was Obina's. That makes it mine." The door shifted under the other side's push. "This house is mine, and Chioma's now. You are a guest who outstayed her welcome." A wave of heat rushed through Mama Agatha's chest. She pressed her ear to the door, catching the faint metallic tick of the lock. "You knew his wishes," Mama Agatha said, voice rising. You knew he wanted me here. I know the will was never found, the voice replied. So Obina's wishes are moot. Moot. Her echoing disbelief filled the hallway. How could Obina's love be made moot? A group of servants exchanged uneasy glances nearby, wringing their hands. No one intervened. The door remained shut. With a quiver of dignity, Mama Agatha backed away, her chin high. But inside, a storm raged. Betrayal, outrage, looming homelessness. The lock alone could not keep out a mother's determination, but the locked door was the first of many obstacles she would face. The bank was uncomfortably air-conditioned, its polished floors echoing with the click of security cameras. Mama Agatha sat before a solemn bank manager, Mrs. Yuzo, who rifled through printed statements behind a glass partition. "I'm sorry, Mama," Mrs. Yuzo said softly, pushing the papers across. "Your joint account has zero balance." Mama Agatha stared at the sheet. All transactions, zero. She recognized none of the withdrawals. Zero? But Obina, he said he would take care of me. This account, he built this. The manager adjusted her glasses. There were large outflows, all authorized by the other signatory, Mrs. Chioma Obi, 2 days after Mr. Obi's funeral. Mama Agatha's hand flew to her mouth. "Chioma," she whispered. Mrs. Yuzo nodded. "I'm sorry. There's nothing more I can do without a court order." Mama Agatha felt a cold fist wrap around her heart. Instinctively, she clasped the beads at her neck. How could she? Her voice shook with pain. "My only son and his wife." On the marble counter, the bank statements seemed to mock her in neat columns. Each line was a blow. Transfers to unknown accounts, cash withdrawals, wire transfers labeled estate expenses. "The bank will fully cooperate," Mrs. Yuzo continued. "But you need legal authorization." Mama Agatha nodded numbly. There was only one name she could turn to, Barrister Igioma. A friend of Obina's mother since their village days, a woman known for her tenacity. Conversation highlight. Mama Agatha, voice flooded with tears. "Igioma will help me." He trusted her. "Mrs. Yuzo, you have every right to contest this. We can freeze future transactions on request." Rising to her feet, Mama Agatha steeled herself. The bank doors loomed before her, an exit into a world she'd never imagined, one without financial security, one where her own flesh and blood had betrayed her. The world had turned its back on her, but she refused to bow to the injustice. By sunset, Mama Agatha found herself on a dusty village road leading to Barrister Igioma's modest home. A single-story structure with peeling paint and a bright red door. It was miles away from the city's wealth, but for Mama Agatha, it represented hope. Igioma opened the door before she could knock. Her sharp eyes softened at the sight of her old friend. "Agatha? What happened?" "The funeral." Mama Agatha collapsed into her arms, the weight of betrayal pouring out. "It's gone, Igioma. My account emptied." Obina's study locked. His will vanished. In the living room, they sat across a coffee table scarred by hot cups. Igioma poured steaming tea and listened, her jaw tightening. When Mama Agatha finished, tears staining her wrapper, Igioma rose. "Tomorrow we go to Obina's lawyer. If there was a will, he has a copy or knows where it is." The next morning, they arrived at a sleek law office, its glass doors gleaming. They met with Mr. Okoye, Obina's longtime attorney. He led them to a file-lined room where a pristine mahogany desk stood. "Mrs. Obi," he greeted gently, "I'm deeply sorry for your loss." He opened his drawer and froze. Mama Agatha and Igioma watched as his polite expression tightened. I can't find the will," he stammered, rifling through stacked folders. "It was here yesterday. Someone must have taken it." Mama Agatha's world shuddered. "Someone..." Mr. Okoye's eyes fell to the floor. "I recommend we file a missing property report. Without the will, it's presumed there is none." Igioma's voice grew low. "Presumed? That's unacceptable. We need every avenue. Was it sealed? Who had access?" The attorney shrugged helplessly. "Access was limited to me and Mr. Obi himself." The ghost of a missing will hung between them, its absence more damning than any forged document. Night fell with thunderheads rolling across the Lagos skyline. Rain began to fall in heavy sheets, drumming on rooftops like an urgent pulse. Mama Agatha trudged through the deluge to the house of her next-door neighbor, Mrs. Amici, a widow who had known Obinna since childhood. Mrs. Amici welcomed her inside, fanning the fire in the hearth. The warmth was a balm against the cold rain. As the storm roared outside, Mama Agatha poured tea, her fingers tracing circles on the cup. "Tell me," she said, voice trembling, "what you know about Obinna the night before." Mrs. Amici's eyes darted to the window, then back. She drew Mama Agatha close, her lips brushing her ear. "I saw him," she whispered. "2 nights before the accident, I was walking home and saw Obinna arguing with a man at the corner market." Mama Agatha's breath caught. "A man? Who?" Mrs. Amici swirled her tea. "I couldn't see his face clearly, only his silhouette. But they were shouting." Obinna looked terrified. He held a small envelope, thick, like papers inside. Mama Agatha's heart pounded. Could that envelope be the missing will? Or evidence of a deeper conspiracy? "And then," she pressed, "they shoved each other." The other fellow grabbed the envelope and ran off into the night. Obinna called after him, begging. His voice was so desperate, I thought he would chase after him, but then he stopped. He just stood there. Outside, lightning forked across the sky, illuminating Mama Agatha's wide eyes. A drumroll of thunder answered Mrs. Amici's words. "I don't know who it was," Mrs. Amici whispered, "but I remember the way Obinna knelt in the rain, searching the ground for those papers." Mama Agatha pressed her hand to her heart. Every piece of this puzzle was strewn across betrayal and shadows. The storm carried the echo of Obinna's dread and the missing pages that could save a mother's legacy. With the rain pelting the windows, Mama Agatha realized that her quest had only just begun. Her son's final wishes lay hidden in the shadows, somewhere between locked doors, vanished documents, and whispered confrontations. Yet as she stared into the night, she felt a surge of resolve. She would reclaim what was rightfully hers, no matter the cost. A crisp dawn breeze slipped through the open gate of the Obi mansion, carrying with it the scent of frangipani and brewing tension. Mama Agatha, wrapped in a simple wrapper and headscarf, stood at the driveway's edge, eyes fixed on the dusty country bus pulling up. As the door hissed open, a figure alighted with swift confidence. Barrister Igioma, her favorite village friend turned city heavyweight. Igioma paused, taking in the grand facade, towering columns, polished marble steps, and the black ribbons still draped over the balcony railings. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, squared her shoulders, and strode toward Mama Agatha. "Mama Agatha," she called, voice rich with warmth. "It's been too long." Mama Agatha stumbled forward, tears pricking her eyes. She embraced Igioma, burying her face in her friend's tailored suit jacket. "Thank God you came." Inside, the house was eerily quiet. The servants, withdrawn and anxious, watched from doorways as the 2 women swept past in a whirlwind of urgency. Igioma's keen eyes missed nothing. The locked study door, the empty family portraits, the faint echo of Chioma's heels on the marble floor above. They ascended the staircase to the drawing room, where chaotic dust lay undisturbed on the coffee table. "Tell me everything," Igioma said, seating Mama Agatha on the plush sofa. Between sobs, Mama Agatha recounted the burial day eviction, the locked room, the emptied bank account, and the missing will. Igioma's jaw set like iron. She rose, pacing the length of the room. "This is no mere family spat," she muttered. "This is a calculated takeover." Mama Agatha clenched her beaded rosary. "Chioma has power, the house, the money. I have nothing." Igioma reached for the phone. Not for long. She dialed rapid fire, coordinating with a junior associate at her law firm. Moments later, electronic beeps confirmed. The bank account was frozen, a court injunction filed to contest Obinna's estate, and a search warrant drawn up for the locked study. Igioma turned, her eyes aflame. "You will never be homeless," she vowed. This house, this legacy, it belongs to your son, and by extension, it belongs to you. At that moment, servant Amaka knocked timidly. Barrister, the house phone is for you. Ijeoma took the receiver. As she listened, her expression darkened. She glanced at Mama Agatha. He's here, she whispered. Together, they moved to the front hall, where Inspector Nonso, now back behind the wheel of his old yellow cab uniform, waited silently. His normally jovial face was grave. Mama Agatha, he greeted, removing his cap. Chioma found out you're fighting back. She's hired extra guards. Ijeoma crossed her arms. Let her try. We have the law, and we have each other. Inspector Nonso nodded. I'll keep watch on her movements, and I'll dig into Obina's accident. Mama Agatha felt a spark of hope ignite within her chest. With Ijeoma's legal fire and Nonso's streetwise tenacity, she was no longer alone. As the trio stood united in the grand foyer, a distant door slammed upstairs, an ominous reminder that Chioma was already plotting her next move. Late that night, lightning fractured the sky in jagged arcs, illuminating the silent corridors of the Obi mansion. After coaxing the guards away with forged maintenance requests, a skill learned from Ijeoma's resourceful team, Mama Agatha slipped into the study. The door gave way with a faint click. The junior lawyer had picked the lock. Inside, moonlight filtered through half-drawn curtains, casting long shadows over Obina's desk. The surface was nearly barren. Only a stack of legal pads, a tarnished brass lamp, and a single fountain pen lay atop. Mama Agatha ran her fingers over the pen's cool metal. It had belonged to Obina, his constant companion during board meetings and quiet prayers alike. She clicked the pen open, and to her astonishment, a tiny red light blinked inside its barrel. With trembling hands, she pressed a concealed switch. A scratchy voice, a voice she knew better than any other, filled the stillness. Obina's voice, soft, urgent. Mama, if anything happens to me, you must listen to this. Chioma cannot be trusted. She's planning to take everything. I've hidden the will in a letter behind your old wardrobe panel. And I'm afraid of what might happen. Mama Agatha's breath caught. Tears blurred her vision, but sharpened her resolve. Obina had foreseen this betrayal and left her a lifeline. She rewound the recording and pressed play again, committing every word to memory. Then, with newfound purpose, she slipped the pen into her wrapper and retraced her steps down the hallway. In the guest room, Ijeoma sat hunched over documents, her face bathed in the cold glow of a laptop screen. Mama Agatha entered silently, pressing a hand to her friend's shoulder. Ijeoma looked up. What did you find? Mama Agatha withdrew the pen, offering it like a sacred relic. Ijeoma's eyes widened as she hit the same switch. Obina's voice, urgent, trembling, filled the cramped room. When the message ended, Ijeoma's expression hardened. He was always steps ahead. They exchanged a glance loaded with understanding. The hidden will was within reach, but only if they could find it before Chioma discovered its location. As thunder rumbled overhead, Mama Agatha realized the hidden will lay behind the old wardrobe in her abandoned bedroom, now watched by Chioma's new guards. Time was running out. At dawn's first light, Mama Agatha and Ijeoma gathered in the garden pavilion to await Inspector Nonso's report. The sky was bruised purple, the garden silent, but for the rustle of palm leaves. Ijeoma tapped her foot anxiously. Mama Agatha clutched the recording pen like a talisman. Finally, Nonso emerged from the winding stone path, wiping raindrops from his hat. Mama, he greeted, voice low. I've got news. They ushered him to the marble table. He reached into his jacket pocket and produced a small audio device. I recorded Chioma's conversations. Mama Agatha's pulse quickened. Nonso pressed play. Chioma's cold, confident voice spilled out. Chioma, panting, the developer wants the papers by tonight. If the will surfaces, everything falls apart. Ijeoma straightened. She's gearing up for a midnight rendezvous. Nonso nodded. Yes, and there's more. Tonight, Obina's cab, my old taxi, was at the scene of his accident again. I checked the logs. They were tampered with. Someone staged it. Mama Agatha's hand flew to her heart. Staged? They killed him. I believe so, Nonso said grimly. Tonight, I'll meet my old informant at the taxi rank. He has photos of a scene, people you wouldn't expect. Igioma rose, slapping the table. Then we move tonight. We retrieve the will, gather evidence, and expose them all. Mama Agatha felt her fear melt into determination. She had her lawyer, her detective friend, and her son's own foresight guiding her. As the three allies made their plans, a sleek black SUV slipped silently behind the hedge, as if Chioma had learned of their conspiracy. Night draped itself over the mansion like a velvet cloak. Under Igioma's direction, the security guards were lured away on a false alarm. Nonso disabled the rear cameras. The front door remained locked, but Igioma had the key code. Mama Agatha led the way to her old bedroom at the end of the corridor. Once her sanctuary, now Chioma's guest suite. The door was unguarded. Inside, moonlight revealed the once grand wardrobe, its panels carved with Obina's initials. With gloved hands, Igioma slipped a slim screwdriver between the wood grain. The panel clicked open, revealing a dusty cavity. Mama Agatha's breath caught. She reached in and pulled out a sealed manila envelope, its edges browned with age. Her fingers trembled as she broke the seal. Inside lay 3 items. A signed, notarized copy of Obina's will. A handwritten codicil naming Mama Agatha as sole beneficiary of the mansion and trust fund. A typed letter addressed to Igioma, outlining Chioma's plan to seize power and liquidate all assets. Igioma pressed the documents against her heart. He knew everything, she whispered. Mama Agatha sank to the floor, hugging the envelope to her chest. He saved me. Thunder rolled in the distance as they replaced the panel, sealing Chioma's fate within the very walls she had thought impenetrable. But as they fled the room, the soft click of footsteps echoed in the hallway. Chioma was returning early. Back in the garden pavilion, lit only by the silver glare of a lone lantern, the trio regrouped. Mama Agatha wept softly, clutching the will. Igioma photographed each page. Nonso peered through the hedge, listening. All that remains, Igioma said, is to catch Chioma red-handed. Nonso tapped his phone. I've already pinged her cell phone. She's in contact with an estate developer, Mr. Azubike. Mama Agatha's eyes widened. The same name from the bank transfers. Igioma ran a search on her tablet. Azubike and Partners, known for hostile takeovers. Nonso clenched his fist. She'll meet him tonight at the old warehouse on Victoria Island. I've set a discreet perimeter. Mama Agatha swallowed hard. Then let's go. They piled into Nonso's cab, Abuja license plates to avoid suspicion, and sped into the night. As the city lights passed in a blur, Mama Agatha steeled herself. This confrontation would decide her future. Outside the warehouse, under flickering sodium lamps, Chioma emerged from her SUV. Phone pressed to her ear. Nonso's recorder caught every word. Chioma, whispering, the will is secured. Transfer the funds tonight. And dispose of anyone who gets in our way. Igioma smiled thinly. Got it. Nonso signaled the hidden police unit. Flashing lights swept across the parking lot. Chioma's scream echoed as officers closed in. Mama Agatha stepped forward, holding the signed will aloft. This house, this legacy belongs to me, and to my son. Chioma's face drained of color. In that moment, every deceit, every betrayal was laid bare. As handcuffs clicked shut, Mama Agatha realized the battle was won, but the war for her son's legacy had only just begun. Morning light filtered through the study's dusty windows, illuminating the open will and the codicil that named Mama Agatha sole beneficiary. Barrister Igioma spread the documents across Obina's desk as Inspector Nonso and Mama Agatha peered over her shoulder. The typed letter, Obina's final warning, revealed Chioma's plan: sell the mansion, pocket the proceeds, and vanish. Worse still, it detailed her collusion with corrupt estate developers to erase everyone who stood in her way. Igioma tapped a passage, She intended to liquidate Mama's trust fund within 30 days of my funeral. Her voice trembled with anger. He laid it all bare. She saw $signs over a mother's tears. Mama Agatha's eyes glistened with a fierce light. He trusted me to fight for him, she whispered. Nonso stepped forward. We'll present this blueprint in court. It's irrefutable evidence of premeditated fraud and conspiracy to commit murder. Together, they gathered every page, every shred of proof. The betrayal was no longer abstract. It was written in Obina's handwriting, sealed by his hand. As they prepared to file the evidence, Chioma's lawyer stormed into the office, brandishing an injunction to halt the case. That afternoon, under a scorching sun, Mama Agatha stood before the mansion's ornate gates, clutching her walking stick. Security guards, hired by Chioma, blocked her path with cold determination. Chioma and Nonso flanked her, legal documents tucked under their arms. Madam, you have 72 hours to vacate the premises, the head guard announced, voice devoid of empathy. He brandished a court order bearing Chioma's stamp. Mama Agatha's heart thundered. This house was my son's home, and now you cast his mother into the street? A sneer curled the guard's lip. Obey the order, or we'll remove you by force. With dignity entwined in grief, Mama Agatha turned away. As she descended the marble steps, a crowd of onlookers gathered, shadows of sympathy in their eyes. Chioma murmured reassurances, while Nonso scanned the street for safe passage. Once outside, Mama Agatha inhaled the humid air of the compound road. The mansion loomed behind her like a betrayed fortress. Yet in her chest, a steely resolve took root. She would not cower. As they left, a neighbor discreetly handed Mama Agatha a torn photograph, Obina, Chioma, and a third figure whose face was scribbled out. A new clue emerged. By evening, the eviction video, captured on a sympathetic neighbor's phone, had exploded across social media. Hashtags like #Justice for Mama Agatha and #StopElderAbuse trended nationwide. News outlets called for interviews. Talk show hosts decried the cruelty of a daughter-in-law who kicked out her late husband's mother. In a small, rented room, Mama Agatha watched the coverage on a battered smartphone. Tears of sorrow gave way to tears of vindication as comments poured in. Shame on her. Mama deserves better. I stand with Agatha Obi, Chioma whispered. We turn public sympathy into legal leverage. The court of public opinion can sway the real court. She drafted a petition calling for an urgent injunction to restore Mama Agatha's residency. Nonso grinned as notifications pinged. Even the local council is demanding an immediate hearing. Mama Agatha felt a warmth not born of triumph, but of solidarity. Strangers had become allies, united by outrage at Chioma's betrayal. As midnight struck, a knock rattled the door. Chioma's lawyer arrived with a counterpetition, challenging every claim and accusing Mama Agatha of falsifying evidence. The dawn after the viral storm, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the humble guest house where Mama Agatha had taken refuge. A tall, impeccably dressed man emerged, extending a gloved hand. Mrs. Obi, I'm Mr. E's, Obina's silent business partner. He escorted her outside, where a convoy of luxury cars waited. Obina and I founded an agricultural venture together, he explained. He left instructions for me to protect you if anything happened. Inside his executive office, walls lined with awards and framed photos of Obina, Mama Agatha learned of a trust fund set aside for her, amounting to more than enough to cover the mansion's expenses. I've already transferred control to your lawyer, Mr. East said, handing over a USB drive. Tears flowed freely as Mama Agatha realized her son's foresight extended beyond words in a hidden pen. He had enlisted a guardian she never knew existed. Chioma plugged the drive into her laptop. The screen filled with bank statements, company records, and a video testimony from Obina himself, verifying the partnership and instructing Mr. Ease to act as her protector. As they celebrated this unexpected ally, Chioma's disgraced lawyer sent a chilling warning. Your new benefactor may not be as silent or as altruistic as he appears. Back at the law firm's war room, Illuminated by the glow of computer monitors, Ijeoma and Nonso pored over the USB contents. They discovered not one but multiple accounts, Obina's public estate and a secret overseas trust bearing Mama Agatha's name. Nonso shook his head in disbelief. He hid millions for her security. Ijeoma smiled grimly. And all of it ready for immediate disbursement. We can cover the mansion's costs, shore up legal fees, and even file defamation suits against Tioma. Mama Agatha inhaled deeply, steadying herself. He spared nothing. They drafted a motion to present the secret trust as undeniable proof that Chioma's financial maneuvers were willful fraud. In court, this revelation would leave no room for doubt. That evening, Mama Agatha returned to the mansion, not as a supplicant, but as its rightful owner. The gates clicked open at Ijeoma's intervention. Nonso's discreet threats ensured no resistance. Chioma watched from the balcony, stunned, as Mama Agatha crossed the courtyard with newfound grace. As Mama Agatha stepped inside, Chioma vanished into the shadows, a final showdown looming behind closed doors. Late one humid morning, the Obi Mansion's grand driveway was interrupted by two unmarked police SUVs. Inspector Nonso, uniform crisply pressed, approached Chioma's SUV as it rolled to a halt. Flanked by Ijeoma and Mama Agatha, he presented a gleaming warrant. Chioma Obi, he announced, his voice echoing against the marble pillars. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, obstruction of justice, and involvement in the staging of Obina Obi's fatal accident. Chioma's face, painted in couture makeup only yesterday, went pale. Her perfectly styled bun loosened as her shoulders sagged. This is outrageous, she shrieked, voice cracking. I did nothing wrong. Ijeoma stepped forward, sliding a copy of Obina's codicil across the hood of Chioma's SUV. You forged signatures, emptied trust accounts, and plotted to erase this woman's inheritance. We have your own phone recordings. We have the hidden will. We have Obina's pen recording your threats. Chioma's hands trembled as officers gently cuffed her wrists behind her back. She glared at Mama Agatha, rage and humiliation warring in her eyes. As the police led her away, Mama Agatha felt a surge of vindication and sorrow for how far cruelty can drive a daughter-in-law. From the rear-view mirror, Chioma whispered through clenched teeth, "This isn't over." The ornate courtroom was packed to the rafters. Television crews, bloggers, and human rights activists jostled for position behind the press barrier. Above them, a massive monitor looped footage of Chioma's eviction and Obina's pen recording, images that had gone viral days before. Mama Agatha sat front and center, hands folded in her lap. Beside her, Ijeoma's legal team arranged stacks of documents, bank statements, the secret trust fund records, and the blood-spattered will recovered from behind the wardrobe. Inspector Nonso stood quietly at the back, ready to testify. The judge, stern, bespectacled, peered over her bench. We will hear the state's opening argument. The prosecutor's voice rang out. Your Honor, this is not just a property dispute. This is premeditated fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy to commit homicide. We will prove that Chioma Obi engineered every step to strip a grieving mother of her home and murdered her son's reputation in the process. When it was Chioma's turn, her defense attorney stumbled through a weak challenge, dismissing the recordings as fabricated and accusing Mama Agatha of extortion. But as Inspector Nonso took the stand, laying out the tampered taxi logs and the developer's wire transfers, his testimony rang undeniable. Outside, supporters of hashtag Justice for Mama Agatha cheered as live feeds streamed to thousands of viewers online. Each revelation drew fresh gasps. Each piece of evidence tightened the net around Chioma's defense. As the judge prepared to adjourn for deliberation, Mama Agatha felt her heart hammer, knowing the verdict would decide not just her future, but the legacy of her beloved son. On a quiet Wednesday morning, the packed courtroom returned to hear the verdict. The gallery fell into a hush as the judge adjusted her robe. Mama Agatha gripped Ijeoma's hand, tears pooling in her eyes. On charges of fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy to commit murder, The judge began, voice steady. The court finds the defendant, Chioma Obi, guilty on all counts. A collective exhale swept through the room. Chioma's defense attorney sank into a seat, face ashen. Mama Agatha felt her knees grow weak, relief and sorrow entangled in her chest. The judge continued, the court hereby awards full ownership of the Obi family estate and all associated assets to the plaintiff, Mama Agatha Obi. Sentencing for the defendant will occur in 2 weeks. Mama Agatha rose, lifting her eyes to the gallery. Reporters snapped photos. Mobile screens flashed her triumphant smile. She bowed her head in gratitude to Ijeoma and Nonso, then offered a quiet prayer of thanks to Obinna. Outside, the frangipani blossoms trembled in a gentle breeze. A crowd of supporters wept and cheered, a once-broken widow restored to dignity. As Chioma's fate was sealed behind courtroom doors, Mama Agatha understood that true justice was more than a verdict. It was the rebirth of her spirit. Spring sunshine bathed the grounds of the newly renovated Obi mansion as Mama Agatha, radiant in a white lace dress, cut the red ribbon marking the grand opening of the Obinna Obi Foundation for Widows and Elders. Around her stood Barrister Ijeoma, Inspector Nonso, and a throng of widows, orphans, and community leaders. In her keynote address, Mama Agatha's voice rang clear. My son believed in kindness, in lifting those who have fallen. Today, we honor his memory by giving shelter, health care, and scholarships to those who need it most. Obinna's legacy will stand as proof that love can triumph over greed. Tears glinted on her cheeks as she gestured to the inaugural project, a row of bright yellow cottages, each named after a client whose life had been transformed. A choir of village women sang the national anthem, their voices soaring like a benediction. Among the attendees, Chioma, wearing plain clothes under electronic monitoring, watched from a discreet corner, her shoulders hunched in shame. But Mama Agatha spared her no glare. Her focus was on renewal, not revenge. As the first families moved into the guest cottages, Mama Agatha realized that her son's tragedy had become a fountain of hope for thousands. As sunset painted the Lagos skyline in brilliant hues of orange and purple, Mama Agatha stood beneath a young oak tree planted in Obinna's honor. She placed a small bronze plaque at its base, engraved, in memory of Obinna Obi, son, friend, and champion of the weak. Around her, guests tossed handfuls of golden soil, each blessing echoing in the cooling air. Ijeoma handed Mama Agatha a sapling branch, which she gently tied to a support stake, symbolic of the pillars of justice and friendship that had upheld her. Mama Agatha breathed deeply, feeling the rhythm of new life in every leaf. You may bend a good woman, she whispered at the tree, but you can never break her spirit. A soft breeze rustled through the branches as lights twinkled on across the foundation's cottages. In that glow, Mama Agatha saw not an ending, but a promise of healing, empowerment, and an empire built on compassion rather than wealth. Final words on screen. Obinna's legacy, where love outlasts betrayal and hope conquers despair. And so, the curtain fell on a story of loss turned to triumph, and a mother's unbreakable will to protect her son's dream. The end.